Okay, my name is Brant Hunt. It's a little late here on the East Coast, but I want to do one last video and then I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to deal with the Tavistock Institute tonight on human relations. Reading from this particular book by John Coleman, that is Dr. John Coleman. And my channel here is Discerning What is True. So we're going to start it here and give you some good information, that is. So this is chapter 24, and this is again from Dr. John Coleman, talking about brainwashing saves a U.S. president. I would venture to suggest that even after all my years of exposing Reese and his work, fully 95% of Americans don't know who he is or what harm he has done to the United States. This substantial number of our citizens, even today, totally unaware of how they have been manipulated and forced to accept new ideas, new cultures, and new religions. They have been grossly violated and don't know it. They are still being violated and still don't know what is happening, especially when it comes to opinion making through polling. To illustrate my contention, former President Clinton was able to survive a scandal after scandal on the basis of polls showing that the American people didn't care enough about his outlandish behavior to call for impeachment proceedings. Could this be right? Could it be true that people really don't care about public morals anymore? Of course not. The situation is contrived, one taught by a Tavistock Institute, and every poll taker is trained in Tavistock methods of opinion making and manipulation of public opinion so that the answers come out right. We can add also President G.W. Bush to the survivors. He has not been removed from office, notwithstanding the blatant lies that were used to start a illegal, unconstitutional, that is, war in Iraq. It's unconstitutional because war was never constitutionally declared. Also, there is no provision in the U.S. Constitution for the United States to attack another nation that has not committed acts of belligerence against it. How has President Bush got away with not being impeached? The answer lies in the Tavistock Institute and its mass brainwashing capacity. One of the early tasks undertaken by Tavistock after its so one of the early tasks undertaken by Tavistock after it launched total war on the U.S. in 1946 was the forced acceptance of alternate lifestyles on the American people. Tavistock documents show how the leaders of a campaign to force legal public acceptance of groups whose behavior was until the changes were forced through by the Congress, recognized as a crime in almost every state of the Union, in some states remaining as a crime. I am referring to the gay lifestyle as it has come to be known. The careful profiling that was done before this change program was launched was not believed by the uninitiated, who dismissed it as a lurid science fiction, even though it were spelled out in the simplest of terms. The vast majority of Americans never heard and still do not know in 2005. That is, the Tavistock Institute went into war against them in 1946, and that the people have been losing that war ever since. Tavistock turned its attention to the United States after the close of World War II. Methods that brought Germany down were now unleashed against the United States. Massive brainwashing of our nation was called long-range penetration and interdirectional conditioning. The main purpose of the endeavor was to install socialist programs at every level of government, ushering in a new dark age that is a new world order inside of a one-world government communist dictatorship. Particularly, it was designed to break down the sanctity of marriage and family life. It was aimed at the Constitution also to make it no fair. In fact, homosexuality, lesbianism, and abortion are Tavistock designed programs as are aimed at changing the U.S. Constitution. Much of Tavistock's programs are based on getting the right candidates elect. This being achieved with the help of trained pollsters with the clever loaded questions. Tavistock gay lifestyles. Blueprint called for several task force units who would assist the media in painting over the homosexual onslaught and making the new lifestyle crusade seem just like any other people. Talk shows are now integral parts of such plans, but back then they were not as widely used to bring about social changes as they are today. The leaders selected Tavistock to promote tremendous changes of the social and political scene via talk shows. They were Phil Donahue, Gerard Revento, Bill O'Reilly, and Barbara Walters, and scores of other people whose names have become household names in America. It was they who presented people who were to run for office, people with hitherto have been laughed off the platform. But now, thanks to the skillful use of polling, such persons are taken seriously. The mental planning that went into priming the public through TV talk shows hosts cost millions of dollars spent in putting this Tavistock forced social change long-range plan into effect. And as a result showed, Tavistock did his homework well. With all my experience, I am still amazed at how this great coup was pulled off. Entire communities across the nation were profiled. Guests from talk shows and their audience were selected by profile matching without ever being aware of what was being done without their knowledge or consent. Americans were bamboozled on a grand scale and didn't know it then, and still don't know it. Nor did they know that they were being whipsawed by the Tavistock Institute for Human Relations. Finally, after 3 years of preparation, the Tavistock sodomy/lesbian onslaught that was launched against a totally unsuspecting American people can be likened to the storm that burst upon the unsuspecting French nation at the time of the French Revolution. A well-planned and executed campaign began in Florida according to plan, exactly as planned, and Eva Bryant came forward to take up the cutchets against the invaders of the gay community. Words carefully selected by Tavistock, which had now become fully acceptable. For this episode, the word gay was never used to describe homosexual or their behavior. Again, Tavistock was founded in 1921 as a successor to the Wellington House that had pulled off a great coup in 1914 and 1917, as already related, getting Britain and America into a savage war against Germany. Tavistock was to serve as a primary research vehicle for British intelligence service. Still the best in the world, Brigadier General John Rawlins Rees, commissioned by the monarch, was chosen to run the project, and the British royal family funded the project with the help of the Rockefellers and the Royals. In the middle of the World War II, Tavistock received additional funding from David Rockefeller in return for help in taking over the former Reynaud Heydrich's German secret intelligence service. The whole apparatus and personnel of the brilliant top Nazi security system was boldly transported to Washington, D.C. in violation of the supreme law of the land. It now began to be called Interpol. Oh, Interpol, okay, international police here. During the Second World War, both the London and Sussex facilities at Tavistock served as headquarters for the British Army Psychological Warfare Bureau. The significance of this is that through the best friend arrangement between Churchill and Roosevelt, Tavistock was able to take full control of U.S. intelligence and military policies through Special Operations Executive, SOE, and maintained this control throughout the Second World War. Eisenhower was selected by the Committee of 300 to become the Commander General of the Allied forces in Europe, but only after extensive profiling by Tavistock. He was then appointed to the White House. That is, Eisenhower was allowed to retain his seat in the White House until, when his usefulness is expended and memories of the war receded, he was dumped. Eisenhower's bitterness over the treatment he received at the hands of the Committee of 300 and the Tavistock Institute is reflected in his statements about the dangers posed by the military-industrial complex, a veiled reference to his former bosses, the Olympians. Committee of 300 book tells the full story of this ultra-secret, ultra-elite body of men who rule the world. The Committee of 300 has had at its disposal a vast interlocking network of banks, financial houses, print and electronic media, large groups of think tanks, new science who are in reality the modern day creators of what passes for public opinion, creates through its national poll opinion makers, and so on. Today, over 450 of the top 500 companies are in the grip of the Committee of 300. These include Petro-Canada, Hong Kong and Shanghai Bank, Halliburton, Root Kelly and Brown, British Petroleum, Shell, Xerox, RAND, Radiothon, ITT, Eagle Insurance, all the largest insurance companies, all the top companies and organizations in the U.S., Britain, and Canada. The called environmental movement is entirely controlled by the committee through the Tavistock Institute. Most people to believe that brainwashing is Korean Chinese technique. It isn't. Brainwashing dates back at Tavistock. As the originator of the art, the science of behavior modification has had its origin in Tavistock, which trained an army of intelligent personnel to go out and do likewise. The United States, perhaps more than any other country, has felt the weight of Tavistock's fist in our national life at almost every level, and its grip on the country has not been lessened. If anything, with the advent of William Jefferson Clinton and Bush, father and son, it's been considerably tightened. We were truly brainwashed in 1992, 96, and we truly are a brainwashed nation in 2005. The United States is the principal victim of long-range penetration warfare using the rinse technique. Other victim countries are Rhodesia, which is now Zimbabwe, Angola, South Africa, the Philippines, South Korea, Central America, Iran, Iraq, Serbia, Yugoslavia, and Venezuela. The technique isn't working in Iraq and Iran. By and large, Muslim countries don't seem less receptive to Tavistock mass population control methods than Western countries. There is no doubt that their strict adherence to the laws of the Quran and to Islamic faith is what folded Tavistock plans for the Middle East, at least temporarily. Therefore, a concerted drive was mounted to wage war on the Muslim world. That is succeeded in forcing change on a large number of countries and mirror in events that have since transpired. At home, Tavistock reshapes a whole series of major U.S. institutions, both private and government, among them our intelligence agencies, units of the Pentagon and congressional committees, large corporations in the entertainment world, and so on. So that concludes chapter 24 tonight. Just want to do a short deal here tonight, sharing with you what has taken place here since after the World War II place, how they've schemed to make us brainwash here in America. So we'll look at 25 tomorrow and share from that and continue to express to you what Tavistock has done as they continue to do this to not only us, but other countries. I wish you a good night. Thank you for listening, and you take care.